Americans haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada, Trump said in January. By February 1st, he slapped a sweeping 25% tariff on Canadian steel, aluminum, and eventually cars and consumer goods. Canada didn't protest. They stopped buying. From canceled Amazon orders to empty McDonald's drive-thrus, a quiet rebellion surged across the border. By spring, 59% of Canadians were actively boycotting U.S. goods. No hashtags, no noise, just economic silence. Stores ditched U.S. brands. Tourism collapsed. And major American companies bleeding billions. All because America's closest ally decided enough was enough. So what happens when your best friend becomes your boldest critic? For decades, the relationship between Canada and the United States was defined by seamless economic integration. From the moment NAFTA was signed in 1994, and even through its renegotiation into USMCA in 2020, trade between the two nations flowed like water. Canada relied on American goods, and America depended on Canadian energy, raw materials, and talent. Consumers on both sides of the border barely noticed where their products came from. The assumption was simple: North America worked together. During that golden era of cooperation, cross-border shopping thrived. Canadian snowbirds flocked to Florida and Arizona every winter, and American tech companies expanded effortlessly into Canadian cities. The economies were not just linked, they were fused, supported by shared values and a mutual understanding of interdependence. But under the surface, cracks were already beginning to show. The rise of economic nationalism in the U.S., particularly during Donald Trump's first term, brought friction. Even after leaving office in 2021, his rhetoric, and later his return to the presidency in 2024, centered on the idea that America was being taken advantage of, even by its friends. By early 2025, those ideas turned into action. A new round of tariffs was imposed with little consultation. Ottawa was caught off guard. At the same time, Trump's comments dismissing Canada as a non-priority in trade talks were broadcast across North America. That marked the beginning of a psychological shift. Canadians weren't just frustrated with American policy, they felt insulted. And for a nation long known for diplomacy and patience, the reaction wouldn't be loud. It would be measured, widespread, and deeply personal. The era of quiet loyalty had ended. Something colder, quieter, and more deliberate had begun. On February 1st, 2025, President Donald Trump announced a sweeping new economic package that stunned both allies and adversaries alike. At the center of it, a 25% tariff on imported Canadian steel and aluminum. The justification? America first again, Trump declared from a podium emblazoned with the words, "Reclaim our supply chains." But it didn't stop at raw materials. Within weeks, the tariffs expanded, first to Canadian-manufactured vehicles, then to finished consumer goods, packaged foods, household appliances, even clothing. According to the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, the administration cited unfair subsidy advantages and Canadian over-reliance on the U.S. market as reasons for the action. Trump, however, was more blunt. "They need us more than we need them," he said in a Fox Business interview. "And I'm tired of them piggybacking off our success." The move blindsided Canadian officials. Not only had there been no serious trade dispute in progress, but most analysts saw Canada as one of the most compliant partners under the USMCA. Nonetheless, the Trump administration treated this as a unilateral correction to what it called asymmetric interdependence. Behind closed doors, members of Trump's economic team saw a different target: political optics. With the U.S. economy showing signs of stagnation and job growth narrowing to the public sector and social services, the White House sought a scapegoat. Canada, peaceful, trade-reliant, and without the ability or will to retaliate militarily, was the perfect foil. Washington's gamble was that Canada wouldn't retaliate hard, that consumers would continue shopping as usual. that Justin Trudeau's departure and the arrival of Prime Minister Mark Carney would signal a soft reset in the relationship. But that's not what happened. Instead, the Canadian government moved fast, and the people moved faster. Prime Minister Mark Carney, a former central banker with a reputation for calm pragmatism, shocked observers when he took to the podium in Ottawa just days after the tariff announcement. "The relationship we once relied upon," he declared, "a relationship built on increasing integration, is over." Canada responded with its own 25% retaliatory tariffs. But more significantly, the government enacted selective import bans on key U.S. products: alcohol, apparel, footwear, and luxury consumer goods, many of which were disproportionately purchased by younger urban Canadians. Provincial alcohol regulators, such as LCBO in Ontario and BC Liquor, pulled American wines and spirits from shelves. According to data collected by Wikipedia and local Canadian media, sales of U.S. alcohol dropped by 66% in March and April alone. But it wasn't just government policy. The true rebellion came from the ground up. A poll conducted by Angus Reid Institute showed that 59% of Canadians were actively boycotting U.S. products. Even more, 85% said they had already replaced or planned to replace American goods with Canadian alternatives. Social media wasn't flooded with hashtags or protests. Instead, consumers downloaded apps like MapleScan and Buy Canadian to help identify American-made items in supermarkets and avoid them. Retailers joined the cause. Stores began labeling shelves with maple leaf stickers for Canadian-made items. Some even created special aisles labeled Buy Canadian, Support Canada. Amazon Canada, facing an overwhelming shift in public sentiment, saw a 41% drop in traffic and eventually shut down all 7 fulfillment centers in Quebec. Around 1,700 workers were laid off, and delivery networks were severely disrupted. McDonald's Canada reported its worst financial quarter since 2020, with a 3.6% drop in global revenue, attributed largely to collapsing sales in Canada. Customers reportedly refused to buy fries made from U.S. potatoes. Meanwhile, Tesla's brand in the country plummeted, with 71% of Canadians supporting a full ban on the company. Pre-orders for the Cybertruck in Ontario and Quebec virtually vanished. But perhaps the most remarkable act of defiance came quietly. Canadian tourism to the U.S. fell sharply. Land crossings dropped 23% in February. Flight bookings plunged 10% initially, then nosedived to 76% below 2024 levels during the spring and summer. There were no banners, no protests, just empty seats on flights to Las Vegas and hotel cancellations in Florida. It was a revolt in silence, and it hit America where it hurt, the wallet. By mid-2025, both sides had dug in. In Washington, Trump doubled down. "They'll come back, they always do," he said in a July press conference. He referred to Canada's actions as performative patriotism and insisted that U.S. businesses were weathering the storm. But that confidence wasn't shared in boardrooms. Retail giants were seeing real losses. Tourism-dependent cities like Miami and Las Vegas reported multi-billion-dollar revenue gaps. The U.S. Travel Association estimated that the drop in Canadian tourists alone cost the country $2.1 billion and over 14,000 jobs. In Canada, there was no sign of backing down. The boycott movement had evolved from a protest into a habit. For many Canadians, it wasn't just about politics anymore. It was about pride, independence, and economic self-reliance. Yet behind the nationalistic tones, a deeper question loomed. Could either side afford this? The North American market isn't just a trade zone, it's a living, breathing ecosystem. And when one part shuts down, the whole system trembles. Now, leaders on both sides are facing a new reality. Escalating the feud could mean economic pain, but stepping back might look like weakness. They are stuck, locked in a dispute without easy off-ramps, held hostage by politics and public sentiment alike, and neither seems ready to blink. In small towns across Canada, the backlash had unintended consequences, not all of them positive. Take the case of Prince Edward County, Ontario. Famous for its wineries and upscale restaurants, this community had long depended on a mix of local charm and imported flair. One of the most popular wine bars, the Barrel and Vine, had stocked high-end Californian Cabernets and Kentucky bourbons as part of its signature menu. But following the February ban on American alcohol imports and the sweeping boycott by provincial distributors like LCBO, the bar's owner found herself in crisis. "We lost half our cellar overnight," she said. "Customers supported the move politically, but economically, it hit us hard." According to data from Canadian liquor regulators, U.S. alcohol sales plummeted by 66% in March and April. But overall, liquor sales dropped by 12 to 13%, revealing that domestic producers couldn't fully pick up the slack. Craft distilleries saw a short-term surge, but bottlenecks in production and limited inventory led to shortages. Retailers in fashion and beauty also suffered. American brands like Levi's, Converse, and Estée Lauder vanished from shelves, not because of tariffs, but because of voluntary removal by Canadian chains following public pressure. Mid-sized chains like Hudson and Hague, which relied on those brands, saw a 17% drop in foot traffic by May. For Amazon Canada warehouse workers, especially in Quebec, the impact was brutal. All 7 fulfillment centers in the province shut down within 3 months, leaving 1,700 employees jobless. With no severance guarantees and no rapid government response, union organizers described the situation as a digital collapse. While the boycott was effective at sending a message, it came at a steep price. Some communities were forced to reckon with a new economic reality, where patriotism meant giving up income, variety, and convenience. The quiet rebellion wasn't bloodless. It came with bruises, and not all of them landed across the border. If Canada felt the burn, America wasn't spared the backlash. In upstate New York, the town of Plattsburgh, once dubbed the shopping capital of the North, became a ghost town by June. For decades, this border town had relied on Canadian day trippers for its outlet malls, diners, and gas stations. But by spring 2025, with tourism down and the boycott in full force, cross-border traffic had dropped by 23% and local sales collapsed. Marianne's Diner, a family-owned establishment since 1972, saw its weekend revenues fall by 70%. "Half our customers used to be from Quebec," the owner explained. "Now, we're lucky if we see 2 cars with Canadian plates a day." According to the U.S. Travel Association, even a 10% drop in Canadian tourism translates to $2.1 billion in lost revenue and 14,000 lost jobs. And the situation was far worse, especially in states like Florida, Arizona, and Nevada, where Canadian snowbirds are a vital part of seasonal economies. In Las Vegas, resorts that once offered French-language packages and Canadian discount rates quietly canceled them. Bookings from Canadian travel agents fell by 76% in the spring season. "You don't realize how much we depend on Canada until it's gone," said a hotel manager in the Strip. But consumer backlash hurt too, especially for U.S. brands. McDonald's reported its worst quarterly performance since 2020, citing a 3.6% global revenue drop, with Canada as a major driver. Customers in Ontario and BC boycotted fries made from U.S. potatoes and avoided American-sourced menu items. Tesla, once the darling of tech-savvy Canadian drivers, found itself on the losing end of public opinion. Polls showed that 71% of Canadians supported banning Tesla outright. The government didn't issue a formal ban, but dealerships reported that Cybertruck pre-orders all but disappeared in Ontario and Quebec. Even Amazon, long considered immune to backlash, took a hit. With 41% of Canadians reducing or eliminating Amazon purchases, U.S. suppliers reported a significant drop in Canadian cross-border orders, especially for electronics and household goods. The message was clear: when your closest neighbor turns away, even giants start to fall. 2 nations, 1 border, Billions lost, and still counting. What began as a tariff dispute has become something deeper, a fracture in trust, not just between governments, but between people. Canadians aren't shouting, they're choosing. With every product left on the shelf, every trip canceled, every fry uneaten, a message is being sent. Friendship is not a given. America, in turn, faces a reckoning. When even your closest ally turns away, what does that say about your place in the world? This isn't just about trade, it's about identity, sovereignty, and a continent rethinking what unity really means. So, where do we go from here? Let us know what you think in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell so you never miss a story that matters.